Hi, I'm Celeste and welcome to Find Your Purple. Today is day 5 of SSSVEDA, a video every day for the month of August. And my topic today is about detoxifying and rebuilding. And if you're new to my story, it started in January of 2016. After losing several people who were close to me, I kind of re-looked at my life. I didn't like where I was, didn't like how I looked, and I felt old for the first time. So I made a commitment that I would start looking for ways to change my life. And at that time I hadn't even heard of YouTube. But by spring of that year I decided I would kind of document sporadically my journey. And things started changing in my life. Unexpected things. I was wanting the change, or thinking the change would be about how I looked, how I felt, and exercises and face creams and procedures and makeup and hairstyle, all of the external things. And what ended up happening was totally unexpected. By the end of my first year, by January of 2017, I had become a born-again Christian after being anti-church structure for 40 years. Had not gone to church except for a couple years early on, and was against it. I felt the structure hampered your relationship with God. I was very much a believer in God and in Jesus, but did not like the church structure. And I also became a vegan, a plant-based eater. And again, prior to that, if you ask me my top 10 favorite foods, 8 of them would probably have been meat and dairy products, and the other 2 would probably have been fast food. So to have turned around and made such major changes in 2 core aspects of my life really has changed my life. And so this week I've been talking about, and probably going to be talking more this month, about my journey being a vegan and stepping up and going to juicing now. So just like in July of 2016, the thought of being a vegan hadn't occurred to me, and by August I started on a vegan diet, the same thing's happening with juicing. Even I grew up with Jack LaLanne, watching him on TV. My mom liked him, and he was a major juicer and a believer in juicer. So I've known about juicing all my life, but never had family members do it and never thought much of doing it. It seemed like too much of a hassle. And yet, in the last few weeks, something triggered it, and I ended up buying a juicer. And for 2 weeks now, I've been juicing, and I'm doing vegetables and fruits, and I'll buy stacks of the stuff. You look on YouTube, and people have these tables covered with it because you need a lot of product to make the juice. And I'm giving it a go. As with going on a vegan diet, I'm going to give it 2 to 3 months before I make a judgment call, but I am doing the juicing. And on that journey, I did a lot of research, like I did with becoming a vegan, like I did with learning about God again and reading the Bible. So with the juicing, I started watching YouTube channels and came across it's all based on a vegan diet. So everybody I watch, they're on board with no dairy, no meat products, that kind of thing. And I came across Dr. Morse, who is a naturopathic, I think, who talks a lot about herbs and the detoxing and how that's critical. And also Dr. Gerson, who was a medical doctor back in the early 1900s, and I think I mentioned it in an earlier video, that he had migraine headaches. He was in medical school. He was asking all the doctors for help, and they said you basically have to live with it. And he kept doing research and came across a woman in Europe who had connected diet with headaches. So he gave it a go, and his headaches went away. He thought it might be a coincidence, so he found a patient who had headaches, migraines. His headaches went away. In addition, the man had had tuberculosis on the skin, and that had gone away. So again, Dr. Gerson thought it might be a coincidence, but he tested people with tuberculosis of the lung. Again, by putting them on his protocol, which involved juicing and a vegan diet, they were healed. And it kind of went from there. So he wrote a lot of books, and a lot of his publications were outlawed in the medical journals in the United States. So they weren't really happy with him, and ultimately he was poisoned when he died. So it's kind of a interesting journey. You might want to check it out. But what he said that kind of resonated with me is affects all areas of life, especially this last couple of years. It's become clear to me. And his three key things were: you stop the toxins coming in, and from a diet standpoint or from environmental standpoint, even makeup, cosmetics, hair products, smoking, drinking. So you stop the toxins if you're looking at health. Then you detoxify. Just stopping it isn't enough. If you've been, especially me in my 60s, if I've been living a life taking in toxins, your body stores those toxins. And unless you do something active to get rid of them, they're going to be hampering any of your healing abilities. And then the third is, once you're detoxified through that process, you rebuild. And again, in the diet case, you rebuild new cells. You're having hundreds of trillions of cells rebuilding every day. And so you want to give it good nourishment to rebuild healthy cells rather than abnormal cells. And so it really did make sense. So I'm already a vegan, so I've gone 2 years of no meat products and dairy, that kind of thing. So that has gotten my system moving in a way it hadn't before. Not to get gross or too much information, but I went from pretty much a 1 bowel movement a day to now after every meal. Again, I used to think that would be very inconvenient, but it is a fact that you need to get everything moving. Otherwise, the toxins are staying in your body. So I already had gone that far, and now I'm adding herbs. I'm adding some natural detox methods, whether that's dry brushing, a steam bath that I do in my bathtub with a little steam machine and covered with a shower liner, just working out more. I don't work out per se, but I do take a morning walk about 45 minutes. Try to move my arms more in that to get the lymph moving, because the lymph is a big part of your detox mechanism in the body. I had a rebounder years ago. I quit using it, so one of my daughters borrowed it. So I texted her this week to see if she still had it. She does, so I'm going to try that. It's not one of the good ones, which I didn't realize there was a difference, but I thought I'd give that a shot, because rebounding is supposed to be a really good way of getting your lymph moving. I do the inversion table, which is another good lymph mover. So I'm working on things that I can do to help my body detox. And with the juicing, it's not the only thing I'm eating as well, but again, I'm eating a vegan diet, but I am adding the juices, watermelon juice and a lot of green juices, and I'm doing a Hippocrates soup that Dr. Gerson recommended. So I'm adding healthy things to make sure the new cells have something to work with. Now, I'm also limiting the toxins. I'm looking at makeup that I use. I'm going to find a new hair color that's natural in the sense of products, and I'm trying to limit what I take in terms of toxicity, and then I'll be doing herbs to help detox and flush as much as I can. And so it's the same thing with faith. You've got to stop the wall. Don't let toxic in, whether that's not reading certain books or magazines or listening to social media or sometimes the news or sometimes it's places you go or friends. You've got to stop it. But then you also have to work with what you've already got inside you. And when it comes to faith, you have a lot of beliefs, whether you got them from your parents or your siblings or the society or your peer groups or news media, social media. There's a lot of things that you are hanging on to sometimes that you don't even realize. So you have to work at getting rid of that stuff, and then you have to rebuild, replace. Anytime you take something away, you create a vacuum that's got to be refilled. And if you don't refill it consciously with something good, then it's going to be refilled likely with bad things. So with the faith, it's about reading the Bible. It's about finding a church community. The small groups in the church, I think, have been a key for me. I went 9 months to church again starting in January of 2016. And during the first 9 months, I didn't really participate in anything. I went to church and I left. And even though they had talked about community groups, I didn't join one. But once I joined the community groups and started getting to know people and meeting weekly, and it's changed and helped with the overall understanding of the Bible and reading the Bible every day. But it's relationships as well. You got to stop the toxic, put a wall up, then you have to deal with all the toxicity in yourself and your thoughts and how you think about yourself and relationships. And then you have to put in new stuff. Sometimes that's reading books or even counseling. You've just got to change the records of your head. So everything you do, every habit you want to break, any good habit you want to put in, you kind of go through those steps of stopping the toxics from coming in, getting rid of the toxics that are already there, and putting in new, healthy nutrition, whether that's nutrition for your faith, for your body, for your relationship. You've got to put something new in. So same thing with finances. You got to stop the spending. You got to stop anything that's watching the news or watching TV or watching the infomercials, if that's what your temptation is, or going shopping. Stop it, and then deal with maybe why you're shopping so much and getting rid of all the junk you have and putting in new habits. So it's kind of a three-prong approach, I think, on everything in life, and I found that kind of interesting when I came across it. So that's it for today. As always, grab your cup of tea, sit back, and let's start sharing. Until next time, bye-bye.